On Monroe Mountain in Fish Lake National Forest, southern Utah, people from very different perspectives are collaborating to solve a complex problem.
There are a whole bunch of private homes up there. There are some endangered species, Bonneville cutthroat trout, boreal toad. There's northern goshawks. It's also world-class elk hunting. And there are grazing permittees, municipal watersheds. I mean, you come up with a list of issues that make land management complicated, and you find most of them up on Monroe Mountain.
Monroe Mountain is a mountain that wants to grow aspen, more so than a lot of mountains.
And the ecologists thought that it was maybe on a third of the acres that it ought to be on. So the question was, why isn't aspen flourishing more on Monroe Mountain?
In 2011, diverse stakeholders formed the Monroe Mountain Working Group to develop and test strategies for aspen restoration on 175,000 acres of the Fish Lake National Forest.
We're at a little spot called Milo's Kitchen on Monroe Mountain. This was the first stop on our 3-day tour when the Monroe Mountain Working Group was first forming. Behind me is a youngster aspen, teenager, a young adult, a mature adult, and an aspen stem that has finished its life. So this place was emblematic of what we were going to ultimately aim for.
There are really 3 factors that threaten the forest. The first is fire suppression and the increase in abundance of conifers. And the way you deal with that is you burn the forest on frequent intervals, which causes aspen to regenerate, but makes it prone to being eaten by the animals on the mountain. And then the third issue that really is a problem is climate change.
The United States Forest Service manages the aspen growth on Monroe Mountain. The working group informs its decision-making. The goal of the Monroe Mountain Working Group is to reach consensus on how to best restore aspen to the mountain.
The Forest Service knew if they just fashioned a plan by themselves, it would be shot down by people who didn't agree or didn't understand. And the best chance to get to a durable decision that would be broadly accepted was to get everyone together and listen to each other and understand the perspectives and learn that some of the misperceptions were misperceptions.
We've got county commissioners, people who represent environmental NGOs, grazing permittees, people from the Division of Wildlife Resources. We try to have all the stakeholders represented in the working group.
So my role in the project was the scientist to come in and objectively look at what was going on in the mountain.
I was the sheep producer, and my neighbor, he represented the cattle producers.
My job was to look at the habitat on the mountain and do what we could to look out for wildlife as we did the project.
My role was a representative of the county commissioner. Everybody in our community enjoys this mountain. They come up, they recreate, they fish. They come up here on their ATVs, their UTVs.
These last 2 days, we've been out with the Monroe Mountain Working Group, with the Forest Service, and look at what we've accomplished so far. Because for 4 years, the group met to make recommendations. And in 2015, the Forest Service went through the NEPA process.
The National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, requires federal agencies like the Forest Service to notify the public prior to proposing a major federal action that will have an environmental impact.
So the Monroe Mountain Project released 2 documents that were pursuant to NEPA. One was an environmental assessment, and the second one was an environmental impact statement. Well, there are maybe 20,000 people that care about the mountain, but for various reasons can't participate in a consensus group that's meeting a day a month. But there needs to be a way for them to be involved. By releasing those NEPA documents, It provided them the awareness of what was going on and also the formal processes by which they could get involved.
I'll be frank and honest that I moved into the process very skeptical of the ability to work with environmental groups.
And it gets contentious against the wildlife people and the ranchers who's out here, who have a right to be out here for the forage.
I think everyone in the collaboration has to live in the real world. They're having to live with Mary O'Brien, who is rooting for the flowers and the native grasses and wanting to be sure that Aspen is taken care of as well as possible. I'm having to live with their reality of grazing cattle and hunting elk. And we all agree we have to live with each other's realities.
We did our own monitoring projects where we would go out and measure in pretty scientifically rigorous ways, first of all, the amount of browsing, but then we really needed to attribute it to one mouth or another. And we put up these hunters' trail cameras, and we watched all the animals that went in there and ate. Well, it turns out everybody was doing the eating. Elk will do it, cattle do it, sheep, deer, even rabbits.
Compromise was a really important part of the process, right? That people put egos aside so that the right decisions could be made.
Based on the recommendation of the Monroe Mountain Working Group, the U.S. Forest Service presented a comprehensive proposal for restoring aspen on the mountain that was acceptable to everyone who would be impacted.
I specifically asked the Forest Service's district ranger, who has management authority over the mountain, how would it have gone had the Monroe Mountain Group not formed? And he said they would never have proposed something as big as this. The quality of the work that came out of the working group, this whole framework around browse thresholds and around management responses and around a mix of mechanical treatment and prescribed fire. It took a lot of time and a lot of work, and perhaps the group brought expertise to the table that wasn't in his staff there at the district.
NEPA's ideal is like this collaboration, where there's the grazers, and there's the homeowners, and there's the county, and there's the conservation. And everybody gets to put in their information and respond to each other and respond to the agency.
I didn't even know what the word collaboration meant. I was just a sheep herder, wanted to be a farmer and a rancher all my life, so this has probably been, I probably learned more from this than anybody.
I think it's a benefit all the way around for these people to be able to take these back, whoever they're representing, you know, state, federal, environmental groups, whatever, and say, hey, you know, this is doable. It can happen.
One Forest Service person said to me, I'll never look at aspen the same way. And gall darn it, now when I pass an aspen stand, I have to go inside and see how much browse is happening. And that is what NEPA is about, and that's what the collaboration is about. Expanding our field of view beyond our own habits, our own profits, our own desires, our own perceptions.
Protect your voice. Learn more at protectnepa.org.